What statistically improbable thing happened to you? Many years ago I had a terrible day where my then GF broke up with me, then I did terribly in a final exam for a college class, then I lost my wallet, and finally, as I was doing the Charlie Brown sad walk back home, some random branch broke off a tree as I was walking on the sidewalk underneath it, and the damn thing fell on top of me and hit me square across the shoulder and knocked me to the ground. I just burst out laughing because it was so ridiculous. This triggered an old memory from my uni days. I woke up one morning and a series of small things went wrong: think spills, broken dishes, burned clothes while ironing, corrupted assignment file on my laptop, that sort of thing, one after the other, all morning. As I was leaving my hall of residence to head to my first class, I tripped and fell on the stairs. That was the last straw. I turned around, went back to my room, got back into bed and stayed there for the rest of that bad luck day. After losing an AirPod while skiing, I was able to find it the next run. I lost an earring diving in a deep mountain creek. I paddled in the water over where it fell out and I shouted "watch this" to my GF and dove down 10 foot to the bottom and blindly grabbed a bunch of tiny river rocks in my fist and swam to the surface and held my fist high triumphantly. I swam to the bank to my GF and opened my hand and it was there with the river rocks. I did something similar. My mother called me at home and told me she had lost the diamond on her ring while swimming laps and to please come and help look for it. By the time I got there, a lifeguard was putting on scuba gear to scour the bottom of the pool. I walked along the edge of the pool looking along the bottom until I saw something sparkly flashing off the bottom 10 feet down. Dove off of the side and picked up the diamond. All done in about 45 seconds from the time I set my towel down when I arrived. Swimming at the beach with a friend. He loses his sunglasses in the water. We were far out and we looked for them, but couldn't find them. We left to grab lunch for a couple of hours. Came back to the same spot to swim again. Not even 10 minutes later, I touched something with my toe. Reached down and grabbed the item. It was the lost sunglasses. Husband and I visited our old hometown and went to a used bookstore we used to frequent. I picked up a familiar title in nostalgia and flipped it open to find a school student's ID card. The name and photo on the ID? My husband. Turns out his mom had donated books to that store many years before we all moved away from that area. He must have been using it as a bookmark and forgotten. It's not so surprising considering we used to live in that area, but the ID was nearly 10 years old by the time we found it. That book was sitting on the shelf for nearly a decade untouched, waiting for me to come along and pick it up. Bizarre. A friend of mine, had a signed copy of a book from his favorite author. While he was at university, his mother asked him if she could donate his books and he said okay. He had forgotten that the book was in his room. He thought he had it with him at school. When he realized his mistake, the book was long gone. More than 20 years later, another friend, B, was in Japan. He was in a cafe that had a book exchange. He picked up a book that had an inscription. It was dedicated to someone with the same first name as our friend who had lost his inscribed book. B decided to buy it for a, not knowing that A had lost an inscribed book from the now dead author. B sent the book to A in the US. O was quite surprised to get a package from B who he hadn't heard from in years. He was even more surprised when in it was the exact same book his mother had donated. It was still in pretty good condition and even had notes in his handwriting in the margins that he didn't remember making. I underwent a surgical procedure called a stapectomy to improve the significant hearing loss in my good ear. Instead, I ended up completely deaf. My surgical ENT said this has only happened to 5 patients in the US. He was doing research to try to help me afterwards. I don't know how true it is, but hey, lucky me. My dad had his retinas spontaneously detaching. One popped off completely and the other was in the process. The surgeon told him not to worry because 100% of all his retina reattachments had been successful. The one that was in the process of detaching was fine, but after like 3 or 4 surgeries of the one that came off all the way, it kept popping back off, and then the surgeon was just like, sorry bro. Retinas can detach for no reason? It can go spontaneously if you have bad myopia that keeps getting worse. I think a Redditor explained to me it's like your eye keeps moving into like more of a football-like shape and then it can just go boing. Luckily, I'm closing in on my dad's age for when that happened to him, and my eyesight is worse than his was so. Same happened to my dad. You are right, it happens to nearsighted people because the shape of your eyes is oval like an American football. And when you age, the retina has trouble adjusting to that shape, and if a small hole or rupture is formed, then the liquid in your eye starts seeping through the back of the retina and eventually leads to full collapse. Don't lift heavy and don't hold in your sneezes or do anything to increase the pressure of your eyes. And be wary of any flashes or visual events and get to the ER ASAP. That's about what you can do. When they repair the retina, they drain the liquid and use laser to attach the retina and then fill it with gas to put pressure and let it heal. I don't remember the full process because this was 10 years ago, but it's quite amazing what they can do. I think this happened to him in the late 90s, so hopefully since then the tech has gotten way better. But yeah, don't lift heavy. Good thing I got into weight lifting in the last 2 years LMAO. Though I see something weird or have a random eye problem and like run to my eye doctor. I had my first floaters and like when in the day I noticed then and not just normal LOL. Well, by the time you might get it, you are in a much better position than him, both in being prepared and also advancements in the field. Also, doing it regularly is probably better than sudden heavy lifts. Also, being wary to not do weight lifts that put extreme pressures, like handstand push-ups or something, haha. I received my heart transplant after being on the list for only 7 hours. I had a friend of a friend in New York who needed an organ transplant. The doctor evidently told her, you'll be waiting for a year here. Go to Florida. They have no helmet laws and year-round Sunday. She moved down and had a new liver in a few weeks. Hopefully that's the organ she needed. I mean, it would be hilarious if the doctors were like, you're next on the donation list, so let's spin the wheel and see which organ you're going to be receiving today. Will it be a replacement for your failing liver? Will it be a third eyeball? Let's find out right after this commercial break. Not me, but a friend. He was a merchant mariner. Lived here in Virginia Beach. He was always calling and texting, posting pics from around the world. One time he'd been out a while, we knew he was heading to Dubai, but didn't know where he'd be after that. 4 months go by, nobody's heard from him. His neighbor, who I was friends with, gets married and goes to Thailand for his honeymoon. He texts me one day and said, you aren't gonna believe this. He said he asked a local where a good local spot to eat was that tourists wouldn't be at. Guy takes him 30 minutes from the beach to some dive bar/restaurant with no sign, no clearly marked entrance. He said it looked so shady he was afraid he was about to be robbed and killed. He goes in, and it's a legitimate restaurant. He eats, drinks some beers, goes to the bathroom. Out walks my friend, so he took a pic and sent it to me to confirm he's okay. Imagine taking a flight several thousands of miles away, getting away from the tourist areas and going into a local dive bar, and running into your next-door neighbor you haven't seen in months. Wild. Friend of mine, American, was visiting New Zealand. She wasn't in a big city. A random small town that I've never heard of and probably couldn't even pronounce. She went to a hole-in-the-wall restaurant and was seated at a table directly next to her ex, who she hadn't seen or talked to in several years. She said they never discussed visiting New Zealand and she just went on a whim with a friend. I was once in a cafe in a small, but touristy, town in NZ with someone visiting from the UK and she ran into a work colleague too. My other story like that is meeting a girl in Prague and then about a year later meeting a girl in northern France. When I became Facebook friends with the second one, I realized the first one was a mutual friend. Turns out they went to school together in the UK. I'm from NZ. Not quite as out there, but still pretty random. Works the other way with Kiwis, too. You'll end up living in London or wherever and one of your flatties will introduce you their boyfriend who'll be the brother of one of your best mates from primary school. Shit, it turns out the parents of a girl I had an awkward teenage relationship with were originally introduced to each other by my nana, who lived in a town with a population of 5k people a 3-hour drive away. While not quite other side of the planet situation, it was still an unlikely coincidence. Yeah, I actually have a different Kiwi friend I met in France and she has a uni friend whom my sister got to know in London. All the rest of the time, of course, I roll my eyes at people overseas going, "Oh, you're from New Zealand?" My cousin slash best friend slash former hairdresser lives there. Riding my bicycle on a commercial fishing pier as a kid, I lost control and rode off the edge with a 20-foot drop to exposed rocks at low tide. I tried to stop myself going over by planting my feet on the edge of the pier, but I knew my bike was too heavy. Somehow the bike stopped, halfway over at a 45-degree angle. However, now the seat was in the small of my back, preventing me from getting off, and I couldn't budge it at all to get the bike back up. A fisherman finally ran over to help me and we decided he would pull me as hard as he could and I'd let the bike fall. I jumped to the side as he pulled me back to the pier, and it worked. However, my bike was still there, not moving at all. When I examined what had happened, there was a piece of rebar sticking out from the edge of the pier bent upwards in an L shape, and it passed diagonally through the spokes of my front tire and completely wedged my bike in place. It was the only spot on the 300-foot-long pier with anything sticking out. I most certainly did not stop myself and my bike from going over. Dude. Damn. No, they said it was a pier. Back in community college, people thought I was dead for half a day. I was supposed to meet a friend on campus to go eat. I was running late because my dad wanted me to do something before I left. I don't remember what. I get to campus and there's this fountain, the kind you can walk through or run about and avoid sprays of water. Around the whole fountain is a bunch of police tape. So I kind of think, okay, weird, then I go to the building where my friends hang out. As I walk in behind one of them, I hear them telling everyone else I killed myself that morning. Turns out that a guy matching my physical description killed himself in the fountain. Between that and what he'd said to someone before doing it, along with my appalling lack of punctuality, everyone thought it was me. I always thought the Mark Twain quote of "the reports of my death are greatly exaggerated" was badass, but I had never thought I'd have the opportunity to use it. What was their reaction when they saw you? A couple hugged sighs of relief, one going "oh shit" and running off. Seems they'd told the school paper it was me. The cops did a proper ID, fingerprints and everything, so I never heard anything beyond my immediate group of friends. I know my fingerprints are on file, so I'm not super worried about others being identified as me. Before people ask, I was fingerprinted as part of a kidnap kit. They fingerprinted me, included a picture and laminated it. I grew up a latchkey kid in the times of ID necklaces and bracelets. Please like and subscribe for more daily content.